Hey, so I went a little insane and decided to collect and fully upgrade every weapon in this game, then use a save editor to cheat my stats to max and get to the max New Game Plus difficulty. I was just really sick of making new saves and farming upgrade materials, I gotta be honest. But this is great, because I'll be able to make these rankings way faster and easier now. Theoretically. You might be thinking, well, maxed stats and fully upgraded giant armor will make you super tanky. That's no fair. I humbly disagree. Now let's get started. We have decent damage against the Asylum Demon, which is nice considering how fast the Dagger swings. But the Asylum Demon is an insufficient damage test, as are most of the early game bosses. Here's a better test. Backstabs are the bread and butter of daggers in this game, but unfortunately, of the two starting daggers, this one has less critical damage, and no bleed like the Bandit Dagger has. Regardless, it still does pretty good backstab damage, so there's that. Even non-backstabs are fine against the enemies this early into the game, but that falls off pretty quickly. Two little swings is perfectly reasonable considering the swing speed and low stamina cost. Because the dagger's hitbox is pretty small, you gotta be mindful of the angles at which you attack bosses, since the dagger can just miss as seen here. The damage is fine and the swing speed is really nice, leading to a pretty decent DPS overall, I guess. All in all, I killed the boss and only used 3 Estus and it was fun. Estus is one of the metrics by which I'll judge weapons. Oh geez, I haven't explained my rules. I can't infuse weapons, and I'm not allowed any damage boosting rings, gear, or consumable buffs. So I'm just using Havel's Ring and the Fap Ring. Fap being slightly redundant, but I like the extra stamina. Wolf Ring would be a nice alternative, but some weapons need Havel, Fap, and Daddy Mask to be used with giant armor. Which is why I'm wearing the Mask of the Father, despite something like the Black Iron Helm being more defense while still keeping me in light load. I don't like mid load. Feels bad. With that out of the way, let's continue on to the Taurus Demon. Yada yada, fine damage, fast attack speed, easy to attack between its attacks, good DPS, let's move on. Having a faster weapon would be nice for Lowerberg, but these dogs are built different, and even with one of the fastest weapons in the game, it's hard to hit before getting hit. So Lowerberg is still pretty dangerous, especially if you're a reckless idiot like me. But it wasn't too bad. And neither was the Krappa Demon. Things were a tad hairy until I got the dogs out of the way, but after that I was in the clear. And the damage is pretty okay, and the attack speed is very convenient. Another easy and fun boss, hooray! Depths isn't really worth talking about since I skipped basically the whole place, but the dagger is very small so it won't be bouncing off the walls of the narrow passages here. We can just move on to the boss now actually, no need to show this part. Capra Demon was the last boss whose health was low enough to make the fight reasonably fast. The jump in health is pretty large between him and the rest of the bosses. But I wouldn't say the damage has crept into bad territory. Look how fast his health bar is going down. That's pretty good even. Not a super interesting boss, but it was pretty easy. 3 Estus used. That last one doesn't count because it was after the boss died, so shut up. Making our way down Blighttown is where the damage on mobs also falls off quite a bit. Those guys take, I think, 2 backstabs to kill each, maybe 3, and normal enemies take 4 swings to kill. That's too much for me. It's not terrible considering the fast attack speed, it's just too annoying to deal with, so I ran past just about everything in Blighttown. Even these guys it takes 3 hits to kill. Just a little too long spent stopped to dispatch a demon. Speaking of dispatching demons, Quelaag is even tankier than the Gaping Dragon was. But tell me something, are you surprised that an uninfused, completely unbuffed dagger is doing this much damage? At max New Game Plus, no less. I don't understand how I ever thought this game was too hard, but we'll get reminded of that later on. Now, Ceaseless Discharge. The thing about Ceaseless Discharge is super easy. I wanted the Rite of Kindling next because there were bonfires I haven't kindled, so we're killing Pinwheel earlier than I'll be doing in future runs of this game. I ran right past most of the Skellimans, but I did kill as many Necromancers as I could to make the run through here later on easier. And boy was that a good idea, because these skeletons are annoying to fight with a dagger. It takes a lot of hits to kill them, and they do a pretty decent amount of damage to me, and there are a lot of them. No good. This dagger deals a surprisingly good amount of damage to Gaping Dragon and Quelaag, but a surprisingly bad amount of damage to Pinwheel. Very strange. I mean, it's Pinwheel, it's not a problem, but given the damage I did to Gaping Dragon, I expected a little more here. Went back here to kindle up the bonfire, so I might as well kill Stray Demon too. Damage is fine, Stray Demon just has a lot of health, but is slow and easy to hit. Used 1 Estus. That first one was fall damage, so it doesn't count. You'll never guess how the Demon Fire Sage fight goes. This fight was way more dangerous than the Stray Demon. Again, having this much defense is not that much defense at max New Game Plus. Luckily we were able to get a backstab in, which gave me the opening to grab the doll I needed. And then we could just take this guy out. Riveting encounter, wasn't it? Speaking of riveting encounters, our next boss is the Moonlight Butterfly. As you saw with the bush guy, 4 swipes to take it down, which isn't great since there are so many around, but it's fine because you can run past him. You can run past this guy too, but I was curious. Not terrible, but I wouldn't want to fight more than one of those guys at a time with this dagger. Or in general, if I'm honest. I did show a clip of me getting mercilessly one-shot earlier, but that was a one-time thing, thankfully. This boss is so great to fight melee, because it's just 4 or 5 minutes of running around waiting for the boss to allow you to hit it, which is one of my favorite things in gaming, just like waiting around. It's so fun. And it took 3 rests to kill the Moonlight Butterfly. Yippee! Next I wanted to kill the Hydra, and if you take anything from this video, it should be this. Do not try to kill the Hydra with a dagger. It's a pain in the ding-dong. Yes, I know everyone already knows that, but if you're anything like me, you don't often carry a bow around for situations like this, so you might be forced to kill it with melee, which isn't all that hard, unless you try to do it with a dagger. Most of the heads aren't even that big of a deal, it's just the last one. You know the one. It's almost like this fight is meant to teach you that you can't use one tool for every situation in this game. Foolish Miyazaki, too stupid to know how stubborn gamers are. Then I fought this gold guy for later. Yeah, I did the DLC too, this isn't just beat the game, it's beat all the bosses. But, well, stick around to see how the DLC went. The reason I wanted to do all of that is because now I want to fight Sif so I can get the ring that lets me fight the 4 kings. This fight is pretty dangerous since Sif does so much damage with some of her attacks. That one in particular. It's not too hard to stay underneath him and swipe at her legs, but I'd still rather prefer to have a bit more range for this fight. Still took him down hitless because I'm the best gamer that ever there was. And now it's time for all the spooky, scary, ghosty woasties in New Londo. Which, again, take an uncomfortable amount of hits to kill, especially since there are so many of them, and it's good to actually kill them since they can chase you pretty far. But again, the fast attack speed makes up for a lot of the damage downsides in this area since each individual enemy is stun-locked pretty easily. That doesn't make this area any less annoying or overwhelming at times. People complain about the mob count in Dark Souls 2, but at least you could funnel those guys to kill them easier, not these guys. 24 enemies that follow you through walls, have annoying grab attacks, chase you for a long time, and you need a special item to even attack them. But no, let's complain about 6 guys in an obvious ambush. Let's get back on track. Since I want to kill 4 kings early, I gotta kill this guy. Sorry all those 8 Ingward enjoyers in chat. Backstabbing Dark Wraiths is mad easy, but even without doing that, the damage against them isn't half bad. As you might expect, 4 kings is where this run starts to get a little challenging. Thankfully, due to the lightweight of this dagger, I can maintain my light roll without Havel's Ring, which is 1+, but everything else is a downside. As you can clearly see, that damage is very small, not nearly enough DPS to kill a king before the next spawns. Sticking close by is good because the king's swords have a sweet spot mechanic, for some reason. This attack here did way more damage than those other ones because I was in the sword's sweet spot, which took me a while to realize and was very frustrating up until I did realize that. And don't even get me started on that grab attack. I won't be going over every death, I will tell you how many times I died, but a good percentage of those deaths were caused by things like this, walking into a lingering hitbox, or getting killed by an off-screen king I didn't notice. Most of my deaths were caused one way or another by there being too many kings in play at once, because the dagger just couldn't kill them fast enough. No, I don't know why that stab attack did so much more damage than normal. I've taken that exact attack multiple times before with no problems, but I guess the game decided I was to die at that moment. Now, I couldn't kill kings fast enough with R1s, but then I tried the revolutionary new forbidden technique of pressing R2 instead, and that worked out really well for me. I was still mostly tanking hits as best as I could at the beginning, but later on I learned that I could move around to avoid attacks as well, which really helped out in this fight. With these revolutionary techniques combined, this fight was 6 minutes long and I died 8 times before finally achieving success. Hooray! Snake Fortress was another area where it's best to just run past everything since all the snakes are very, very tanky. And it's not that hard to run past them all, so just, do that, because that damage is bad. Killing this giant didn't take long. When you're able to really go to town on an enemy, the dagger's DPS is pretty good. Still took a few stamina bars to take him out though. You might think this fight would be a slog, but it really wasn't bad. Pokes do okay damage against his little angles. Good enough to be able to knock him over, but it didn't get good positioning for that unfortunately. Until he was almost dead anyway. Very helpful. Thank you, Michael Zaki. Only used 1 Estus too. Easy boss. Anor Londo sucks because these Gargs spawn again and they drop their drops, which makes me have to go into my inventory and get rid of the drops because I already have that drops and I don't want my inventory crowded with duplicates, so I gotta drop the drops they drop so when my inventory is organized and I don't like it. Also, these painting guardians are annoying because they like to roll around. I might be in a minority, but I really enjoy this fight. That is all. Next is the painting, a place full of kinda weak enemies that do a lot of damage. Since the dagger is so speedy, I can kill these guys and dodge before being blasted with blight, which I know isn't always the case with weapons. And the boner wheels weren't as much of an issue as I thought they'd be based on the performance against skellies in the Catacombs. They were still annoying, but I was scared it'd be like a whole stamina bar to kill one. It's Priscilla time. Now some of you will be upset that I'm killing her, but think about it like this. I don't care, and she has a boss health bar. So... By the way, this fight sucks because she's invisible and the dagger doesn't have the poise damage to break her invisibility. I don't know how that hit me, I thought she was miles away. Since this fight is essentially me swinging at nothing, there's not much for me to show you, but I killed her second try. Yay! I ran past all this stuff, cause screw that, I mean, come on. Silver Knights aren't that tough, super easy to backstab, less health than Black Knights. I wouldn't recommend not backstabbing them though, if I'm honest. I also can't recommend being backstabbed by them either. These demons are probably the most annoying enemy to try to fight with this weapon, in the base game at least. Each time you hit them, they jump out of range. Very annoying. When I was originally making this video, I recorded a fresh playthrough with the Dagger, upgrading it and taking it into New Game Plus. I expected it to be unusable for O&S in New Game Plus. When I killed them first try in New Game Plus is when I decided I needed to take this all the way to max difficulty scaling. This game needed to be harder. But even so, thanks to its excellent speed, which allows for quick dodges when need be, and its adequate damage, even at max New Game Plus, I killed O&S first try. I used almost 10 flasks to do it though. And now that we have the Lord Vessel, the first thing I want to get out of the way is Duke's Archives, because it's the longest, hardest, and most annoying part of this entire game. Pro tip, these boars can't go back here so you can just hit them, which takes a while with the Dagger because it bounces. Pro tip, you can backstab these guys and it kills them. Seriously though, since the enemies here are so tanky and dangerous, I wouldn't mess around trying to kill them with the little slashes. Backstab them. And to make sure no more crystal hollows are going to wander in here before you take out this crystal guy. Everything here is so dangerous and tanky. Look how much damage that just did. While I take this scripted death, now would be a good time to remind you to like this video, leave a comment about what weapon you want to see next, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And much like I didn't forget to bring a purging stone with me, you shouldn't forget to ring that notification bell. The second to last thing to mention here is these Mind Flayers, and all there really is to say about them is I wish I had more range. A tad more damage would be nice too, they were pretty annoying. Ordinarily I'd like to kill these clams before going into the boss fight, but with this dagger that's just not gonna happen. Yeah, it's possible to do, but it's just not worth the effort. The reason I'd like to kill the clams is because they can follow you into this fight, which is very dangerous as you can see here by that clam killing me and not the boss's super big crystal blast. Good thing this fog wall is here on subsequent attempts so nothing like that happens again. This was really simple actually. I just nestled myself into one of the tentacle pits and swiped away at his orbish body until he started doing a big crystal blast, which is when I'd run away as far and fast as possible. Damage with light attacks was okay, but since he just sits there, you're free to use the stabbies on him, which do a lot more. He's not weak to thrust though, it's just heavy attacks do more damage. Nito is next on the chopping block, and you've already seen this thing kill a skeleton. It's pretty not fun, so we're going straight to him. And we're off to a bad start. I want him to waltz his way over here so I don't aggro the big skeletons that are back there. But he won't do that if he keeps doing ranged attacks. I also have to keep killing these skeletons while I wait for him. I don't have a divine weapon. And even when he does get close enough for comfort, the short as all heck range on the dagger makes getting hits in a little trickier than I'd like. Lots working against me here. Since this thing has a hard time killing skellies, they were able to gang up on me and I died. I killed him on my second try, but it was pretty luck-based. I figured luring skeletons away from Nito would be a good strategy so I don't get overwhelmed again. Another thing that helped out massively is Nito straight up killing a lot of his own goons. That helped me out a lot. He was very cooperative. My damage was still pretty bad if I'm honest. I figured it would be, but this was a little worse than expected. 4-minute fight, which is pretty dang long, and I used 10 Estus. Not very fun because of the skeletons. Last before the DLC is Bed of Chaos. Damage against these craps is pretty bad, but I run past everything anyway, so I don't really give a care. Damage on this guy was probably fine, I don't even know because I couldn't see his dang health bar. I don't think I even need to show this, you saw the Stray Demon fight. It's that, but again. The Centipede Demon is another story. Nobody ever talks about this fight, but it's one of my favorites in this game and I'm not even entirely sure why. Maybe it's the arena, because the boss itself is pretty normal, but the arena really throws you for a loop. And you can cut off an arm and take the ring to give more mobility mid-fight, which is cool. The damage was pretty okay and I was able to get lots of hits in very quickly, leading to a pretty short and safe fight. Nobody cares about Lost Izalith, nobody cares about Bed of Chaos, we're moving on. Moving on to the DLC, which, if you're familiar with this game, you know is quite a jump in difficulty. This is the most damage I'll be doing to a boss in this DLC by a long shot, and this freaking guy will not sit still long enough for me to get any good combos in. I swear this guy has input reads too, which we will talk about later on with Gwyn, don't you worry. All that aside, this boss is pretty aggressive, which would be fine if it was more stationary, but it very often backs out of melee range during or after one of its combos, leaving you very little breathing room to retaliate, which would be okay if I had the damage to retaliate meaningfully, but the dagger lacks in that department a little bit. I killed it on my 5th attempt, which is already more than any other boss, and the DLC just started. These plant guys are mostly fine-ish to take out with the dagger. It can do it, but because of their moveset, you're unlikely to come out the other side unscathed. The Stone Guardians, however, are a completely different story. They're way above this dagger's weight class, and I would avoid them at all costs if you happen to be using daggers as your main weapon. They have a boatload of health, do a boatload of damage, and have a boatload of damage resistance. Avoid at all costs. Unless you have buffs, I guess, I don't know. It's Artorias time, my favorite boss, and look at that damage. Tiny. Needless to say, I did not first try Artorias. The biggest issue with this fight is the fact that I can't knock him out of his buff. It's just impossible to do with this dagger, which means he can double buff and I can't do anything to stop it, and that lets him do things like this. So this is the tankiest and most dangerous boss we've fought so far. I was certain at some point during this fight that it would be impossible and I'd have to move on to Gwyn. Fortunately for all of you, Artorias is a very fun boss to fight, so I didn't get sick of retrying him again and again. Since it's possible to die very quickly in this fight, I had to be very careful and to not be too greedy with my dagger swipes. Never ever hit him more than 3 times, and always be ready to back off quickly. When I did need to heal, I backed off and tried to bait out one of his attacks. You should never heal when the boss is doing nothing. That's a good general rule, but it goes triple for the DLC. Artorias is usually chill about letting you Estus as long as he's busy in an animation. He's not normally going to do an immediate follow-up like that. And also be careful to dodge away from him when he does that double swipe, or that happens. That was a solid 20-second chunk where I didn't have a safe opportunity to attack him, which is why this fight was 7 minutes long. But it was still a very fun fight. Dagger's damage was bad though. These goofy silly little fellas take a solid 5 swipes to kill, which isn't great since there are so many around and they deal so much damage. Having such low damage against the basic mobs in this area is not great, which makes me happy. It makes me happy because I want to push these weapons to their limits. In New Game, there's no real reason not to use a dagger because once it's fully upgraded and you have a decent amount of levels, it'll kill everything easily. As will most every weapon in the game. What I need is to make the game hard enough that it would be unreasonable to use worse weapons for certain things, like the dagger in this place. I'm killing these enemies fine, but it takes a little too long, uses a little too much stamina, and leaves me a little too vulnerable for my liking. But I've stalled enough. Home stretch of the final 3 bosses. This one, Calamit, being the hardest one of all for me. And look how bad that damage is. Yowza. It's pretty easy to land a lot of hits on Calamit, but with the damage being this low, it's just a matter of patience. And I am a man of little patience. And my patience wears thinner and thinner when I have to encounter hitboxes that feel unintuitive or janky, and Calamit has multiple attacks with those. For this one though, I straight up thought I was out of range and misjudged the distances there, that was my bad. So yeah, this fight was hard or whatever. Very intense and scary. I had very little damage and felt like I was playing Monster Hunter. That being said, I was kinda locked in at this point. Something switched on in my brain like that scene in the Lego movie where Star-Lord becomes the Master Builder. I was being careful with my R1 spam so that I had plenty of stamina to dodge any attacks, I was being smart about where I dodged to when I did need to dodge, and I was quick to get in an attack whenever I could. The damage was very, very low, but Calamit's moveset is very basic, and at this point I know how to dodge most things he does. So this fight was 7 solid minutes of chipping away at his health, and I only used 6 Estus, which I take as an absolute win. That means I didn't crutch Estus too much and actually dodged most attacks well. Unfortunately, Manus didn't go that well. I fought this dingus for a solid 2 hours, and that's not even counting runbacks after a certain point. As you can see, the damage isn't terrible, better than Artorias and Calamit. What could possibly be the problem? That's the problem. Playing now is a compilation of every death that I suffered because of that one nigh unavoidable grab combo, the stupidest attack ever to be put in a Souls-like game. If you dodge out of that first swipe, the second one does the full damage of both initial swipes. If you're not already in a position where you can dodge the attack, it comes out too fast to be dodgeable. This boss is already dangerous and menacing and thematically amazing and challenging without that one attack that takes it from a great boss to the dumbest bullshit ever. This is worse than Waterfowl Dance in Elden Ring because at least there are ways to dodge and or avoid that attack. This combo is just unavoidable in most situations. I died 19 times to that attack and 12 times to other things. This is me being generous because some of these deaths were also technically caused by the combo disrupting me in one way or another. If that one attack was removed from this fight, I would have beaten him within 5 attempts. I can guarantee that. Because a lot of these deaths were caused by silly things like rolling too early or a hitbox being bigger than I expected. Stuff I could iron out if I wasn't terrified of being one-shot constantly. This attempt here was my closest to success, and would have succeeded if it weren't for you-know-what. And it took me 6 minutes 30 seconds plus literally all of my Estus to get that far. I'm never going to say it's impossible to beat this game with any weapon. If it does damage, you can kill anything with it, as long as you're skilled enough. My interest is in what's reasonable and comparing weapons to one another. I have nothing to compare this weapon to at this level of the game, so I can only go with that first one. And I don't think it's reasonable to attempt any of the DLC bosses besides the Sanctuary Guardian with just a dagger. Nor do I think it's reasonable to use just the dagger for most mobbing between bosses. For most early game areas it's fine, but as soon as it takes more than 1 or 2 swipes to kill a mob, it becomes cumbersome. And surprisingly, it's fine against most bosses due to its speed, but against bosses like Nito and the DLC bosses, the speed stops making up for the lack of damage in my opinion. Keep in mind, just for the sake of simplicity, this isn't taking into consideration any of the myriad buffs you could apply to this thing to make it much, much stronger. Now with all that being said, it's time to fight Gwyn. Gwyn is an asshole and I hate him. The input reading is off the charts, and since the dagger has like no poise damage, there's not much I can do to stop Gwyn from doing whatever he wants to me. I can confidently say if you don't want to parry cheese him and you're confident in your ability to work around the input reading and his general wacky moveset with weird damage, thrusting is your friend. The heavy attack will do decent damage and is safer than doing 2 light attacks, which is the max you'd be able to get in before it's not safe to attack anymore. And 2 is unsafe sometimes. Also, when you do the thrust attack, its animation can dodge some of Gwyn's attacks, which is nice, but I wouldn't rely on that for dodging attacks. I gave Gwyn one good college try and died. Damage wasn't too bad, his moveset is just so aggressive and I don't have the poise damage to do anything about it. So I parry cheesed, which I don't feel too bad about since daggers are really designed for this type of combat anyway. That's quite a lot of crit damage. You might be disappointed that I wasn't able to kill Gwyn legit or wasn't able to kill Manus at all. So am I, but now we have a barometer for how weapons will be better or worse. As for this dagger, if I judge it based on how I would change it to be better, no notes. A+, I think it's perfect for what it is. If we were to judge it based on its performance against bosses and mobs, I would change it so it never took more than 3 swipes to kill basic mobs, which would also bring its damage up to the level where killing some of the harder bosses would be more comfortable. So based on that, it'd be like a C+? Sounds about right. C+. Okay, bye. Like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, and let me know what weapon you'd like to see next.